Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cinco de Mayo version, or May 5th of the Sebring City Council regular meeting. We haven't met here for a couple of sessions, and have something I'd like to read to our audience out there regarding to tonight's meeting and possible subsequent meetings throughout the summer. If you would like to participate in tonight's meeting, please go to the city's website. It's www.mysebring.com. That's www.mysebring.com, and click on the tab Register for Council Meeting. That's the tab that says Register for Council Meeting. After registering for the council meeting, if you have a comment or an item that is not on tonight's agenda, please submit your comments or question now, and it will be addressed under business from the audience as we usually do. If you would like to address an item that is on the agenda, please submit your request or your comment or question now, and it will be addressed under that portion of the agenda. So start typing, get your information to us, and we'll be happy to work this the best way we possibly can. We will only be addressing items submitted under question and answer section. We will not be addressing hands raised or chat. With that, I'd like to go ahead and officially open up the meeting with an invocation by our mayor.
Lord, we are truly blessed in the city of Sebring. We've gone through some tough times here that weren't created by us, but we have to deal with it. Our staff you have watched over our staff and our employees as they've run the city over the last month and a half. They've had some strong guidance from you, and we really appreciate you doing that. We ask that you lay your hands on those that are sick and those that may become sick, and to watch over us all. And we ask that all we do in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate that. Okay, it's Mayor Batman tonight. Kathy, let's make this official and call the roll.
Mayor Shute.
Here.
Carlisle.
Here.
Ivy.
Here.
Lawrence.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Stetman.
Here. Okay, we did announce the idea of the business from the audience, so if you have anything that you would like us to hear from you, go ahead and start typing right now and hit your send button, and we'll be happy to do that a little bit later in the agenda. Mayor's report, please.
Well, I'm unhappy to report that nothing has gone on for the last month and a half in the city of Sebring. But I do really, I appreciate what Scott and his staff have done, keeping this going and keeping active. We are blessed from a standpoint that, there is a virus out there, but I don't think it's impacted our area. Everybody's been pretty cautious about that. And I encourage everybody to keep some social distancing and that while we get through this and where it doesn't come up anymore. But that's really the only report of the city that I have. But I do have a proclamation for the observance of May 10th through the 16th of 2020 as National Police Week. So I'd like to read this into the records. Whereas the Congress and the President of the United States has designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, in the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas the members of the City of Sebring Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of Sebring, Florida, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of the Sebring Police Department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. Whereas the men and women of the City of Sebring Police Department unceasingly provide a vital public service, now therefore I, John Shute, Mayor of the City of Sebring, Florida, call upon all citizens of Sebring and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 10th through the 16th, 2020 as National Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers past and present who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in doing so, have established themselves in an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the right and security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of Sebring, Florida to observe Wednesday, May 15, 2020 as Peace Officers Memorial Day and honor those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community and have become disabled in the performance duty, and let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. So thank you.
In witness thereof.
His
Okay.
glasses fogged up, he couldn't see that part.
That's it.
That's
I
the
can't breathe anymore, I'm telling you.
Oh, you'll get through it.
Yeah. In witness thereof, I hereby set my hand and cause the great seal of the city of Sebring, Florida, this 5th day of May in the year of our Lord, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I think that'd be very befitting to actually spread that same message, I would say, to our all of our first responders, our firefighters, our nurses, our doctors, everybody that's out there is working their tails off to combat this COVID-19 situation that we're in the middle of right now. Members of council, it's your turn to chime in if you have any concerns, comments, liaison reports. Charlie.
I just want to say that as many of you saw on your way in, we have a brand new fire truck out there.
Yep.
It costs a little bit over $500,000, but it'll be going into service on this Thursday, I believe.
Thursday morning.
And they're going to have a ceremony for that over at the fire station at 10 o'clock. So if you want to come see what some of your tax dollars are going towards, then come on over, take a look at the new fire truck. I think we're very blessed to have gotten it. And I'm sure it'll serve us well in many years to come.
Okay, and just in case that wasn't picked up by that microphone, I'll just, one more time for the public, I'm gonna say 10 o'clock Thursday morning. I think they call it a watering. Is that what it is? A watering demonstration or watering,
They're gonna give everybody
initiation?
a towel to help clean up the truck and dry it
Yep.
off at the end.
Yep, that way they can see our brand new fire truck that's going into service on Thursday morning at 10 a.m. at the Central Firehouse downtown on Mango Street.
Yep.
Mr. Stewart?
No report.
Mr. Ivy?
Only thing I have, of course, nothing's been going on really, it's all been virtual. I would like to, at the council's pleasure, at some point have a couple of workshops scheduled. Here we are, we're past 6 months on the budget. We know where we are exactly, and make some plans there. And I think there's some issues that we could go over that I'd like to go over. Whenever, everybody's busy, but plus we gotta wear these masks. But at the pleasure of the council, I'd like to see if we can't put those together. That's it.
Okay, I guess we'll put that in Mr. Naylor's capable hands and have him coordinate that as
Sounds good.
necessary.
Okay. I don't know how popular it'd be. but-
Well,
Have to do it.
it's in preparation for the budget, so.
Sure.
Yep.
Yep. Mr. Carlisle?
Yes, I wasn't here after the election, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that voted us three in again, and entrusted us to help run the city, and we appreciate it, and we will do our very best to keep the city on track.
We sure will. Okay, and my comment for the evening is I want to thank all of our constituents out there, and especially my fellow city councilman, Mr. Mayor, city administrator, city attorney, and city clerk, for providing this environment for us to be able to function in and to present our local government day-to-day activities to you on a regular basis. I very much appreciate the fact on all our behalfs, our consideration for each other, and our care and respect that we have for one another, wearing these silly looking masks but keeping each other safe and viable for the very, very distant future. So I do appreciate that as well as we do our citizens out there who are, let's say, going along with the program, as difficult as it may be. We have opened our parks as of last Friday at midnight. We ask the general public to please follow the rules, keep your social distancing, and I think we'll come out of this just fine. We are very lucky, as the mayor had said, to be in Highlands County and in the city of Sebring, where we don't have the volume of the epidemic as they have in places like New York, New Jersey, Illinois, and so forth and so on. So once again, thank you all for your consideration and keeping us all safe and healthy. On tonight's consent agenda, we have items A through K. However, H, and I were left blank intentionally. Is there any? That's okay? You have nothing to slip into those, is that correct? So I'll be looking for someone to, one of the council
I make
members
a
to
motion, we accept the consent agenda as opposed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, Kathy, on the consent agenda, items A through K, the exceptions of A, H, and I. Call the roll, please.
Carlson.
Yes.
Carlson.
Carlisle, yes.
Maybe I should ask
Yes, I saw Jeff today, okay. Carlisle.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
We need,
Yes.
we need to make your name tag bigger.
Yeah.
Stewart.
Yep.
Stratman.
Sure.
I need a bigger name tag.
Item 9 on the agenda, there is no old business. We'll go right into new business. Item 10A is the authorized staff to apply for RPAC funding for the 7 new scoreboards at Max Long Complex. I think Mr. Natelick went out into the lobby to invite Mr. Matt Gose in for this presentation. And by the way, folks out there, if you are going to be sending us any of your input tonight, we're going to give you about a 20 to 30 second delay on that, because it takes that much time for the time that we're broadcasting until you receive it, and then we receive it back from you. So if you do have some input, be prepared to go ahead and start typing that input in, but at the end of each agenda item, we'll give you about 30 seconds. Sir, introduce yourself and why you're here.
Good evening, I'm Matt Gose with the Sebring Youth Baseball. I guess this isn't working.
It is?
It is?
No.
Okay.
Actually, no, you're called on.
Okay.
He's got this one? Okay.
All right, I serve as the secretary on our board out at Max Long. We are in need of new scoreboards. For us to host a Dixie State or district tournament, we are required by Dixie to have functionable scoreboards, and all that has to be working in proper order and the controls and everything. Last year, we pieced everything together, and our guy that's been doing this for years told us we're on our last leg, that these things are probably, we're thinking they're 30 years old. We had to paint the home and away and all their home and visitors on them this year just so they were legible. I mean, that cosmetics is one thing, but the brain box in them is obsolete pretty much. They're just no more around to piece together. So, I guess Sebring Youth Baseball is asking the city to apply to RPAC for some funding for this, to help with this. Sebring Youth Baseball does have money that we were gonna put up on this, but we're really not asking the city for anything. We're just asking them to put the application in on our behalf. Is that correct? Yes, that's what we're asking for. The dollar amount is anywhere from 35 to 40,000 for 7 scoreboards. We want to include the girls softball fields in this. They have not had scoreboards forever. So basically, we are replacing 4 and adding 3 to the premises. Last year, year before last, we did add another small field, and we would like to get a scoreboard for that one too. It just all would And then we have allocated approximately, 10,500 towards the project. And so we're just seeking y'all's help in entering this application to RVAC for us. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Ghost, appreciate that.
Okay?
Gentlemen, discussion?
Sounds good, let's do it.
I'll
Is that a
second.
motion?
Sounds like a motion.
Yes,
Quick question.
sir.
Have you tried to get any sponsors to?
Yeah,
maybe
yes,
put
we
this
are,
on?
I've already contacted 2 or 3 that they're all in. We talked about in a board meeting, maybe doing it as a life deal, you know, or a 10-year project for the sponsors. And I had everyone was in on it for the amount of money, so, yes, these boards come with a sponsor board, that's part of the deal. So they have a sponsor board on.
So you have a different sponsor for each one of the
Yes, sir.
7?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Unless we get someone who wants to do them all.
Okay. Can you do just one sponsor
Nice.
per board?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Thank you, that's a good way, okay, for it.
yes, sir, you're right.
I think we had a
So,
motion and a second.
let me make it a motion. I make a motion, we authorize staff to apply for the RPAC funding for 7 new scoreboards at Maxine Complex.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and 2 seconds. Charlie, we'll go ahead and take your second, I think you chimed in quicker.
Okay.
Now it's time for the public to chime in, so before we take a vote, Kathy, we're gonna give them about 20, 30 seconds to make sure, we don't have any,
All we currently have is city employees on.
you only have, okay, you don't have any member of the public on there right now?
No.
Kathy, go ahead and call the roll.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lorenz.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Denton.
Yes. Item 10B.
Yeah, Matt, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Matt.
Matt.
Appreciate that. Item 10B, Community Development Block Grant Mitigation Program. Mr. Natelick, do you have a couple of folks out there in the lobby that would like to come in?
Actually,
You're up there.
I have them attending by Zoom,
Oh,
Left
look at
side.
that, right on Zoom.
and, your upper left is Fred Fox. And you all probably recognize Fred, he's a grant writer that
Yep.
applied for several grants to the city,
Yep.
usually CDBG grants. Sorry, get this out the room, thank you. So, Fred will discuss the program itself. It is a mitigation program. It's been brought to our attention by Fred. Actually, there was a couple other grant writers that brought it to our attention as well, and actually some city staff. This program follows some of the disasters we had, particularly Irma. This program is designated specifically, 50% of the funds, as I'm reading, would appear designated to high impact areas, and our zip code was one of the highest impact areas in the state. So we feel good about the potential to obtain these funds. And then Ed Blow is with Blow Engineering. He's on the lower left there, and he's provided you all with a quote for services that will be necessary in order to apply for the grant for the CDBG program. With that being said, I'll let Fred take over and explain the program itself. And up on the screen over here is a PowerPoint of slides that Fred will explain.
The first slide is the Rebuild Florida CDBG Mitigation Funding Critical Facilities Hardening Program application cycle. These are funds coming directly from HUD to DPO. Every community in the state is eligible to make an application or submit an application. Each project will be a separate application for funding. There are 3 different cycles. The first is for hardening facilities, which those applications, that cycle's open now, and those applications are due the end of June. The second cycle is for planning purposes, and that application cycle will open in the middle of this month. They haven't designated the date they will be due yet, and then the third and final cycle is for public infrastructure projects, and that cycle should open in the middle of June, and again, they have not indicated when they will be due yet. The total funding available for the first phase of this, for the hardening cycle, is $75 million. The city can submit multiple applications, one application for each facility. The minimum amount for each application is $50,000, and the total amount the city can submit for all applications is $15 million. The eligible facilities would be potable water plants, wastewater facilities, police departments, fire departments, hospitals, emergency operation centers, and emergency shelters. And the types of eligible activities would be dry proofing, wet proofing, ventilation and air conditioning units, anchoring roof-mounted heating, ventilation and air conditioning units, retrofitting building exteriors with hazard resistance materials, and then finally installation of emergency electrical generators. And again, the applications for this phase are due the end of June 30th.
Do y'all have any
And I'd be glad to
questions?
answer questions.
Any questions, gentlemen?
We obviously need to go for it. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Are we going to put in a request for each of the three, or just the mitigation, or?
We're looking at doing each of the three, if you will, but each project is an application. So each one of these, including the emergency generators, will each have their own application. That's how I understand it. Correct, Fred?
That's correct.
So, they actually will be competing against themselves as well.
It's a lot of work. Okay, that was fine.
So we're looking at the buildings is what we're looking at, right? Hardening the buildings.
Evaluating the buildings, you're evaluating windows, doors, hardening type issues.
Well-
Roofs, roof structure. So it's very well possible that we could be looking at replacing, part of the roof structure maybe, trusses, that type of stuff. So we'll be looking at that for the police department, we'll be looking at it for the fire department downtown and the fire department on the highway.
Is this,
We've chosen those buildings is those are the eligible type of facilities or agencies, if you will, that are eligible. We've already gone down the path of, would a city administration building be eligible? It's not eligible. Public Works facility, not eligible. Fred can speak to that, but those facilities are not considered critical infrastructure facilities for these types of disasters, if you will.
well, how about this, and part of this is a general infrastructure program. It's includes sewer and water structures, like on the Lakeview and Center Avenue, that sewer system when that hurricane came through, how that all backed up all in that area. Is there something that we can look at under this to improve that sewer system, taking the water off the downtown, and it flooded our building down there, the little theater, the one that we lease out. I mean, is that something we can add into this since it's available?
Fred?
The storm sewer situation would be in the third phase. In other words, one that opens in June with application date not specified yet.
Oh, so that part's
That
not.
would be the infrastructure phase. The ones we're talking about tonight are primarily for the hardening phase.
So that Fred, this is John Shoup here talking. So that piece will open up later as far as the infrastructure?
It'll open up the middle to later part of June, yeah.
Okay, so that's
Not
something.
later, but not that much later.
So that's something we can look at that time, maybe, if we can look at some of the
Right.
sewer issues that we've had from when we get deluged with rain and that. I think that's something we need to kind of put on the list to also look at.
Agree. Council, you feel the same?
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds great, let's do it.
You want a motion?
Do you have any questions for Fred or Ed?
Nope.
Just go get the money.
Yeah. I make a motion, we instruct the staff to proceed with applying for the CDBG mitigation grant as presented.
Second.
Okay, I do have one question, and that is, what is it gonna cost us to put the applications in? Do we have an estimate for that?
The question is what's it gonna cost to put the applications in?
We normally don't charge to prepare the applications. The other firms is charging you to develop the cost estimates and exactly what has to be done, which we have to include in the applications. We make our funding when you're funded, do managing the project.
So just to give you some explanation of this, the $42,000 and change here, if you will, gets us there. There will be some design costs after that, correct, Ed? This just gets us there. There'll be some design costs subsequent to being awarded, if we're awarded. And then ultimately, those costs are eligible for the funding. But these costs here are not eligible for funding. So everything you do.
Yes, that's correct. We needed to, we're in a support role right now for Fred's efforts, and from an engineering standpoint, we need to create, number one, an assessment of each of these 3 buildings and all the generators that are listed in the proposal, to try and evaluate, are they basically up to current code? Do they function as intended? And there's work involved with that, which I can answer any questions that you may have. And so we're basically, our end product is to go ahead and create an evaluation report to basically justify that these elements for these structures, these buildings, these generators need to be upgraded or improved or hardened as applicable to the grant. And then we also provide an engineer's cost estimate associated with that. And those 2 elements, the report and the cost estimate, is just a portion of what Fred would use in creating his application and submitting that.
And are you talking about the proposal from Capstone for the $5,111.20?
They would be underneath of us. They're an architect, and so there's elements that they would be looking at as far as doors and windows, and maybe your finished roof system. And where we would come into play would be looking at the, and they would be a subcontractor to us, so that's all included in our proposal for their fees or within our proposal. But there's a lot in looking at each building, in particular the roof system, because there could be some vulnerability from a hardening standpoint. Doors and windows, I think everybody can go ahead and understand how they may be vulnerable, but the actual roofing system itself, the roof joists, the hurricane tie-down mechanisms, with older buildings, I mean, the wind codes just continue to go up with wind pressures, and so the buildings could be vulnerable in those aspects, and we want to be able to identify that as well, because there could be opportunities for hardening the roof through advanced tie-down mechanisms, or possibly by stiffening up some of the roof joists.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, we did have a motion and a second. Any more discussions? Is there anyone out in the public that looks like they want to chime in with us, Mr. IT? Looks like not.
Nobody's out there.
You guys ready for a
Regular
vote?
meeting.
Kathy, call the roll.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Levant.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Do we have a virtual police presence up on that screen that I see?
Yes, it is.
Did we? And we actually have a real policeman in the lobby. I'll be darned. Item 10C.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. Item 10C is disaster recovery data backup. Mr. IT himself, Mr. Anderson. You can stay in place.
Well, if y'all know, we're switching over to the new software here in the next 2 months if everything goes as planned. Part of that with the money that we are saving switching was also to implement a better disaster recovery. I'm looking at bringing outside help from a group in Lakeland. And as you can read from that, one city in Sarasota has already was able to beat ransomware using the same software. So it's just one of the things that I want to move forward with our data. It'll be doing backups every 15 minutes. So there'll be a 15-minute gap instead of losing a whole day. And we could even set that tighter, but we're going to start at 15 minutes with utilities, with the amount of transactions we do. 15 minutes wouldn't be so bad to restore. But that's my proposal to move forward with that.
I don't suppose there's a guarantee.
What was the question?
The actual Veeam does have some guarantee, but there's other things that you have to do which would bulk up storage. The thing that I like about with this company that we're going with, or looking to go with, is they also have a storage that I don't even have a key to. If it goes by, they have 14 days that are hidden behind a wall that they have to give access to the city to get to. So there's always a 14-day that I can't even touch, that nobody in the city can touch without their permission.
Well, it's actually a small price to pay considering what could happen.
Yeah.
So I'm a proponent of it. And since you recommended it, it's on you.
I realize that, but it's all on me still.
Better than nothing.
Either way, right?
I'll have to work a long time though.
Yeah,
Pay that
I'm
one
sure
off.
you will.
Yeah, this proposal and statement of work by the DSM, I think I got to page 2.5, and then I flipped back to your very nicely put together background.
Let's just say
Kind of
DSM
put-
is known, they handle, like I say, state attorneys for Polk County.
Yeah.
RIS, which handles all most of your hospital imaging and stuff, they handle all
Right.
of their stuff, so.
Right.
And I'm also looking at doing them support with some of my firewalls and stuff in the future. You'll see that in my budget, to have a second set of eyes on all of my security as well.
And Paul, had you looked at other companies that provide the same service?
Yes, and they're a lot more expensive as well.
Okay.
And you've got local people who have been in the business for a long time of doing security.
I appreciate the work that went into that. Gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion we accept the DSM proposal for software and services as presented and instruct staff to implement a new backup recovery plan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there anyone in the audience that looks like they're going to send in any,
Unless Lisa Oka wants to.
unless Lisa Osha wants to? Hello, say good to
Bobby
Lisa,
Border.
everyone. Okay, Bobby Border, looks like he's up there for some reason.
He just doesn't have a screen on, but yeah, he's there.
Okay, he's just showing that he's there.
Everyone else is left, yes.
Okay, very good. Sounds like we need to call a roll, Kathy, on this agenda item.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes. Thank you, Paul. Item 10D is the appointment to the Sebring Airport Authority. Attached to our agenda items, correspondence from SAA Executive Director Mike Willingham. The term of current board member Stanley Wells expired on April 30th of this year. Mr. Wells is seeking reappointment. 2 names are being submitted as follows: Gary Bagwell and Stanley Wells. That is by alphabetical order. Kathy, you want to explain how that works?
I'll read. three names in alphabetical order. You will get, one vote. You can vote yes or pass, and I'll go to the next name. First name will be Gary Bagwell. Carlisle.
Pass.
Ivy.
Pass.
Lawrence.
Pass.
Stewart.
Yes.
Detman.
Pass.
Mr. Stanley Wells. Carlisle.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes.
Mr. Wells received the majority of the votes.
Okay. And Mr. Wells has already only had one term on the Sebring Airport Authority. And I'm glad to see that we have given him the opportunity to follow up on his first term as needed. And hope Mr. Gary Bagwell is not discouraged and will please put back in for any board, including the Sebring Airport Authority Board, in the near future. Item 13A, under City Administrator's Business, it looks like we have maybe 3 items, 2 of which are on the agenda and then a resolution. So let's go with 13A, the fire assessment rate for fiscal year 2020-21. Mr. Nately, please. What's the matter?
We'll do the resolution.
We can circle back to it later.
We'll
Did you
circle
want to
back.
go?
We can go ahead as you're doing it.
Okay.
Council agenda item 13A is fire assessment rates for 2020-2021. The current rate is 19.7% of the maximum allowed rate, which is 25% of the cap, or the cap is 25% of the 100%, I should say. If you'll, we're looking to gauge council's guidance on where they'd like to see the fire assessment rate for this upcoming fiscal year. If you'll go to the spreadsheet in the packet, it shows the rates that are charged at that 19.7% level, and then the estimated net revenue that's produced. That 19.7% produces a net revenue of $554,068. And as you can see, following out up to 25%, 21% produces $592,785. 22.4% produces $634,000 roughly. 23.5%, $667,000, and 25% produces $703,000. Obviously, each one of those has an impact to the taxpayers. The residential rate at the 21% level would go to $85 from $80 a year. The commercial rate would stay at 3 cents. Industrial would be a penny per square foot. Institutional, 4 cents a square foot, stays that number. Institutional was 4%. The nursing home would go from 27 cents to 28 cents a square foot. And then vacant land would remain at $7 a square foot. Does council have any questions, or is there a move council to adjust that rate this year, or would you prefer to just leave it at the 19.7%?
One question is, last year did we raise it or leave it the same?
Raise it a little bit.
I just have a comment, and I'm gonna simply say that all of our expenses are going up. We just bought a brand new fire truck and whatnot. However, due to the circumstances that we have at the present time with the virus and stuff, I would be inclined not to want to raise taxes in any capacity until we see how everything settles down, and that includes this tax as well.
Well, I'm thinking that maybe, I don't wanna raise anything either, that we can defer this to when we do our budget planning. Maybe things will clear up during our budget meeting and when we meet with the staff. Secondly, I had a question, Scott, about what do we do with this, the money, the revenue from this fire assessment? Does it just go into like their general fund and it's spent for whatever, or is it earmarked for certain things?
I mean, in effect, this does just come to our general fund.
Just throw a general fund and we spend it.
But, obviously it's a, the 19.7% of the fire's budget, if you will.
Is it strictly spent on the fire department? On their activities?
In effect,
One or the
you
other?
can make the argument correct.
I think my point is, if this was raised, that we might need to dedicate this, I see the equipment that is needed in the future, that where we at least take a segment of it and put it into a fund over, say like 2027, they want 1.5 million, even though next year it's another 600, I think, but take part of that money, divide it into 6-7 years and say, okay, we'll put 178,000, dedicate it to 2027 when that's going to come about. They want to purchase it. We should have a lot of that saved up in cash. Again, we may raise it in the interim as well. So I think that if we're looking at growing the city, we don't want to be seen as raising taxes and raising fees every time. I know we may need to just to make our budget this year, but I don't think I want to be seen as raising this thing every year. If I wanted to come into the city, for example, that could be used, to show that, we may not be as much as a county, but that we're raising it every year and raising the fees. So I guess all that rambling, I would suggest maybe deferring it till the budget planning stage.
Can we do it at a different later time, or is this a time sensitive?
I believe this is time sensitive because it
Oh, is it? Okay, I wasn't aware.
it puts Government Services Group on a mission
Okay.
to start the advertising process. So ultimately, we're gonna be sending out notices.
Yeah, so I would,
Okay.
I feel like we need to raise it, because of our shortfall of cash, and I also feel like our income's gonna be down this year because of the pandemic, there's no doubt. But I am in agreement that because of COVID-19 and the hit that our constituents have taken, that we should not do it this year. So I'm in agreement with that.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, I'm here and remain the same. So, no motion to increase.
You have something to say there, Mary?
I do, but I'll reserve it for later.
That means you got nothing to say.
Got nothing to say.
Okay.
Do we need to take a vote to keep it the same?
Scott, let me ask you a question. I thought when we passed this, we passed it
I
to a
would
maximum of
I'd take a vote for
25%.
option number one.
Pardon?
I would take a vote for option number one.
I just had a question. I thought when we passed this the last time, we had the option to take it to 25% without having to go through all the hoops again.
That's correct.
So I mean,
When we say hoops,
you don't have to go through the whole.
We go above the 25% level, we gotta do another analysis or another
Right.
study, and then renotice.
But if we don't have to renotice if we do increase it now.
We just have to vote on
I
it.
think
Right.
he's saying if he stays under the 25,
Right.
it's not as many hoops.
Correct.
And maybe
It's not
maybe is
as
there a way to
many
find out if we
hoops,
have a
but
little time?
There will be notices that go out to those whose rates are increasing under this.
Okay.
So my assessment is the residential customers will receive a notice, as well as would appear nursing homes. And I think that would be it.
Yep, that's the
From
only two.
what I'm seeing, and then any new parcels, I'm gonna use that term loosely, that haven't been exposed to it before, so they'd have to be noticed as well.
Just make sure we're all reading this well too, is that, to go from where we're at to the next line up, 21%, represents only $5 for the entire year for a residential unit.
That's correct.
Yeah, but there's a perception also that we want people to realize that we have compassion.
Oh, no, absolutely we do.
So I make a motion, for the fire assessment rates for 2020-21, that we keep the assessed rate the same as the current 19.7 for maximum level for 2021.
Second.
we have a motion and we have a second. Is anyone out there, Paul, wanting to, add to it? General public, no?
Go ahead and virtual in.
Okay. Kathy, call the roll?
Did it have a second? I'm sorry.
Yes, we do.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, okay.
Yeah, Mark
I
was
need a
the,
bigger,
I
I need a
second.
bigger
The
sign.
second was Mr.
Thank you, Jeff.
With a small
Yeah.
sign over there.
Jeff Carlson, Mr. Carlson over there.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry, Carlson.
Carlo,
Yes.
Ivy,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Yes.
Stewart, Detman.
Yes. Okay, item B under the city administrator's business is uniform waterway markers.
Council, uniform waterway markers, or as we know them, the beach buoys, are currently maintained by a company named Florida Public Safety. And you all probably know that Florida Public Safety is Mr. Preston Colby. And we are looking to financially save the city some costs, beginning immediately and then in perpetuity by bringing those services under the umbrella of the city. And I've discussed this with the fire chief, I've discussed it with Public Works, and we would like to take over the responsibility of the buoy markers, if you all so desire. And so we're requesting terminating the contract for Mr. Colby's services. If you'd like to know, I have discussed that with Mr. Colby, and he understands. So if you'd like, what's your pleasure?
I make a motion to approve termination of the contract for buoy maintenance and direct the fire department to assume maintenance as presented.
I'll second.
Kathy, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Carlisle and a second by Mr. Lawrence. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to chime in here? Mr. Anderson? See anything on board there? Any further discussion, gentlemen?
I'd just like to say that I think it's very well within the realm of the fire department to do that. We do have a fire rescue boat. Fire department does go out on the lakes from time to time. They also have dive rescue teams
That's
that
right.
might have to go out. And knowing the bottom and knowing those places that these buoys are set up, I think it's just a natural thing for them to take over.
Yeah, and I've spoken to the fire chief about this previously, not on this particular agenda item as well, and it's excellent training for them to get out there and do those things and keep themselves sharp on what they need to do. Kathy, let's call the roll.
Carlo,
Yes.
Ivy,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Detman.
Yes. Mr. Nadlick, I think the last thing that's not on the agenda, though, that we walked down, that will be tonight's resolution, which would be, I believe, the extension of the coronavirus state of emergency.
Mr. Swain's made some modifications to that resolution, or our previous resolution, and I'll let him expound on those.
So your initial resolution essentially canceled all meetings of the various boards of the city unless they were handling something of critical importance. This relaxes that to allow them to meet by technological means as the city can meet, as city council can meet that way by virtue of Executive Order 69, which was extended by Executive Order 112, and it provides the meetings according to the governor's rule. The meeting shall not exceed 10 people in any public space that does not readily allow for appropriate physical distancing. It otherwise is the same version that you passed, I believe, on March 17.
I have a question for clarification on the 10 people. That would be 10 people of the public, not council members, and that is assuming that they can all social distance. If they can do that, they can have more than 10 people? Is that
Correct.
Okay. So that would be, let's just say the 10 or 12 plus another 10 for the public.
With appropriate social distancing,
Okay.
it's fine. That's what's allowed now that wasn't allowed previously.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, very good, thank you.
Do you need to read the resolutions?
No, sir.
Okay, any questions or comments? concerns? Do we need to, take a vote on this?
Yes, please, sir.
Okay, let's, see if we can get a motion to accept resolution 2020-14 as we understand it.
I make a motion that we,
So moved.
Accept?
approve the resolution. Accept, the resolution 2020-14.
I'll second.
This mask has got me messed
Okay,
up.
we have a motion by Mr. Carlisle and a second by, Mr. Lawrence. Anyone out there asking to be heard? Mr. IT guy? No? Kathy? Call the roll.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lorenz.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Dutton.
Yes. City clerk's business and announcements, we need to pay the bills, I think.
Yes, sir.
Everybody has a chance to look at the bill run that Kathy sent you via email?
I'll make a motion.
Entertain a motion? I'm
Accept
sorry?
paying the bills as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Motion is by Charlie Lawrence, okay, and Mr. Stewart seconded. Anybody out there? Kathy, call the roll.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lorenz.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Dutton.
Yes. Final two items, if you will, on number 15 on tonight's agenda is the election of council president. 15A is the sheet of paper that's in front of you. The procedure, would you like me to read it, Kathy, or would you like to do so? The procedure is council president will open the floor for nominations. Any nomination of council can nominate another member. Nominations do not require a second. After an appropriate nomination period, the floor will be closed for nominations. Each nominee's name will be called in alphabetical order by the city clerk. The roll will be called. Council members may vote yes or pass. The nominee with the majority of votes will be the new council president.
I would like to nominate Leonard Carlisle for president next year.
A nomination for Leonard Carlisle. Do I hear any other nominations? Do I hear any other nominations? Do I hear any other nominations? Okay, let's go ahead and vote on Mr. Carlisle to be our council president for the coming year.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Ivy.
Carlson.
Yeah, Carlson.
Way to go, Carlson.
Lorenz.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Dutton.
Yes. Now to go on to
I'd sure like to vote for that one.
Pro Tem. This is the exact same procedure for Pro Tem, so rather than to read through those 7 items again, we'll open the floor for nominations for Council President Pro Tem.
I nominate Kurt Ivy.
Amen.
Okay, Mr. Carlisle nominated Mr. Ivy. Are there any other nominations? Other nominations? Are there any other nominations?
There was a blessing.
Okay, Kathy?
Okay. Carlisle.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lorenz.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Dutton.
Sure. Is there any other, was there anyone that business from the audience? Nothing like that?
Yes, sir.
Is there any other business that needs to be carried through this before we adjourn this meeting? Meeting's adjourned, thank you.
Well, you had the very first virtual meeting in the city.